Hi, I'm Dr. John Artis. And today in this masterclass, we're going to be talking about weight loss and the importance of it. There's so many benefits that we could do to actually just simply lose weight, because what works for some people doesn't work for everyone else. Like if I have a friend that might have tried this diet, or a friend that might try this lifestyle, and that might not work for you. But what I want to do today is I want to give you the top 3 tips that I think can work across the board for everybody. And that's one of the ways that research has proven that actually benefits your body the most. But since we're talking about benefits here today, there's some of the top 3 benefits to actually losing weight is you're going to actually feel better. Your confidence will be a lot higher. You actually move better. You're going to save money in the long run. One of the things that people say, well, how am I going to save money? You typically don't eat out as much as you did before. And the second thing could be also as well is that if you don't eat out as much, you think about all the medications, the money that people take, and they spend on medications that they're taking because of high blood pressure, because of diabetes, because of all these degenerative diseases that could easily be prevented if they just lost some weight or actually changed their lifestyle. So with that being said too, the third reason is you're going to have more energy. Energy is critical. We could actually do more. We can actually, enjoy a lot of different things in life when we're not tired and sluggish all the time. So those are just some of the benefits of losing weight. We're going forward. Number one thing that you got to do, though, we talked about it on the very first day in this masterclass, is you got to adapt a healthy mindset. And what I mean by that is you want to make sure that you actually are thinking about the real reason why you want to lose weight. A lot of times, a lot of my patients are women, and they'll come in and they'll be like, man, I got to lose weight so I can get in this dress for this wedding, or their daughter's getting married, or they're getting married, or something like that. And that's really the wrong reasons. You want to do it because you're going to be healthier, you can actually live a lot longer, and that why surpasses any kind of trying to fit into a suit or a dress or whatever it may be. And then not only just to worry about looks, but you just all the other benefits that we talked about that goes with that. But in that first day, we talked about doing 3 steps to actually commit and get that mindset right. Number 1 is just simply having the faith and believing in your body to actually be able to heal. The second one is actually making a decision that it's time to change and having the willpower to actually do it. And then the third one is just committing. We in the second day, we talked about the importance of scheduling your meals and planning out your meals and actually sitting down and actually taking the time to actually do the things that you could do to actually benefit your body, so that you can't use that reason that I just don't have time anymore. And when you commit to something right there, now you're going to commit to a better lifestyle. So now should I have this piece of chocolate cake at 11 o'clock at night, or should I just, maybe just take some tea or something like that and go to sleep? So those are one of the things that we got to make sure that we're doing. The second thing that I want you to do too, besides getting that healthy mindset, is I want you to adapt a food journal. Sometimes apply a food journal into your life. If you're not a big person on writing, if you're a techie, there's an app that I use called MyFitnessPal. MyFitnessPal is probably one of the best apps out there as far as like you logging in what you're doing. What that shows me is that you have some kind of accountability to actually help you to actually make sure that you're keeping track of what you're putting in your body. Remember, your body is something that can't be replaced. That you can get, a heart transplant now, you can possibly get lung transplant, but it's nothing like the one that you had. So you really want to take care of it. And sometimes with being overweight and being obese, it causes your body to work harder. And all these processes, they shouldn't have to work as hard. And so your body's going to get tired of working hard, and you're going to develop a lot of other problems along the way. And most commonly, one of the things that I despise and just don't like is metabolic syndrome. And what that is that's when you have 3 out of 5 indicators. 5 indicators, one could be high blood pressure, anything over 120 over 80, high blood sugar, fasting blood sugar level, anything over 100, high cholesterol, high bad cholesterol, low good cholesterol, and men if you have a waist circumference over 40, and women if you have a waist circumference over 36. And that's one of the things that you're seeing with people being overweight. Just looking about, growing up and looking at family pictures, and I always use as an example, my mother had me on her hip, and everybody in the 1970s was nice and slim, and even into the 80s. And then when we got into the 90s and the 2000s, the quality of food and processed food turned around the whole market, and we started eating more processed foods. And when we started eating those processed foods, what happened was we started consuming a lot more carbohydrates than what we used to, and then our lifestyles changed where we're more sedentary, and then that actually is a combination for you to gain weight right there. And so what I look at is those pictures now to where they had the afros and everything was slim, and now everybody has a short hair and everything is actually going into the waistline and the midsection. So we want to definitely not fall into the pattern that the world is falling into. We got to actually make sure that we're actually taking the best care of ourselves. And on another note, with that being said too, the people in this pandemic right now that are having the worst outcomes are people that are overweight, because they already have such a high level of inflammation in the body. And when we have that high level of inflammation in the body has a hard time of just carrying out its normal processes. And so when you actually got, viruses that are going on and bacteria infections that happens, and your body's already under a certain amount of stress, it even stresses the body even more. So why cause your body to work overtime? And that's one of the simplest ways that we can look at that right there. Now, getting to this thing right here, this is the top 3 things that I think just hands down are the best across the board. A lot of research supports what I'm talking about, and a lot of professionals are actually moving towards this direction. One thing that, before I even give you the top 3 things that I want you to consider, is the American food diet. Okay, they call it the standard American diet, which they call the SAD diet, is one of the worst things that's out there for you. So number one, we've been taught that we need to drink milk, we need to eat lots of carbs, and we need to eat less fat. And what I'm here to tell you is that it's not even so much that we need to eat less fat, we actually need to eat more fat. That's one of the reasons that's causing a lot of these degenerative diseases like dementia, Alzheimer's, because we're not getting enough fat to the brain. And fat is essential for our bodies to carry out certain processes. One of the things that we do need to decrease is we need to decrease the amount of sugars and carbohydrates and all those different things, which leads me to the very first point that I'm talking about today as far as you losing weight. If you look at these things right here, you want to cut back on the carbs. I'm not saying go 100% keto, and which is a very popular diet right now, but you want to cut down on the amount of carbs that you're consuming, because carbs turn into starches and starches into sugars. And then what that happens is that raises our insulin levels in our bodies. And so when you actually have high sugar levels in the body, your blood sugar levels go up and down. So you have to eat to actually bring more energy in, and then your body drops down again, and you eat and energy goes up. When you cut down on the carbs, you want to try to make sure that you're getting about 20 to 30 grams of carbs a day. And where you get these source of carbs from is you'll get them from vegetables. Believe it or not, low carb vegetables. And we're going to talk about some things of that in a second. What happens with that too is it lowers your insulin levels. A lot of times you see people gain weight around the midsection, around the waist, behind the arms, in the neck area, and behind the neck. What happens in that point is that they are having what we call insulin resistance. That means that they're consuming so many carbs that their body has a hard time of breaking it down, and the body is resistant to that. And when the body is resistant to that, you got all this insulin floating around in the body, and you got sugar floating around in the body, and that's just a recipe for disaster, and that can cause a lot of problems. And one of the number one problems that it causes with a lot of people is weight gain. So that's one of the reasons why we need to actually cut down on the carbs. So that's number one. The second thing here is that we need to actually eat protein. We need to eat fat, and we need to eat vegetables. These are the different things right here. So I need to come up with an acronym. So we need to call it PFV. Eat protein, fat, and vegetables. So you need to base your meals around a protein. And I'm not one that's saying, vegan and being a vegetarian is the new, bandwagon right now, jumping on that, because a lot of vegetarians that are overweight and fat because they're simply eating more carbs to fill up because they're not eating enough protein. And that's one of the biggest mistakes that you could say. So yeah, you say, man, I'm cutting meat out because it's making me feel like this and this is doing, but you have to replace it with some kind of protein. Proteins are the building blocks of muscles. If not, you're going to eat more carbs to actually satisfy those cravings. And when you do, you're going to gain weight, or you're never going to lose weight. And so that's not the best thing to do, from a professional point of view. Now, what I mean by that right there is that you want to eat one source of protein every time you eat, one source of fat, and you need to eat also one source of a low carb vegetable. Now this is critical, number two, because I want to go into more detail with this, because I want to make sure that everybody understands exactly what we're saying. Now, with a healthy source of proteins, what that can consist of is meat, beef, chicken, pork, lamb. you know, there's no research that says this stuff is not bad for us. You need to get good quality grass-fed, you know, hormone-free, range-free chickens, all these different things that you're going to spend extra money to get higher quality of meats, but it's actually going to do you justice, and it's going to serve you better in the long run. Now, however, if you're not a meat eater, there are substitutes that you could do for it. So if you want a plant-based thing, you could do more beans, you could do legumes, you could do soy, you could do other things, and make sure that, you know, soy is probably one of the most genetically modified foods, but you want to eat more legumes, more beans. Those are different things. You can make, I've seen people make bean burgers and so many different things like that to actually substitute for that, that protein. Now, also with that being said too, I'm a huge component of the Mediterranean diet, and the Mediterranean diet is very high in fish. Fish such as salmon, trout, okay, you also got seafood like, you know, shrimp, oysters are very high. They also have a lot of nutrients that I talked about, like zinc and all these different things that we actually need to actually have a strong immune system, which is critical during this time right now, okay? Eggs are great for you. There's not a lot of research right here to say that they can cause your cholesterol to go up and stuff like that. But what happens, that's a whole nother segment, a whole nother class. But eggs are really good for you and a good quality source of eggs. So we talked about that. The second thing, which we talk about, that's your source of your protein right there. So you want to incorporate that in as far as each meal that you eat. If you eat 3 meals a day, which is very, very beneficial to do because it keeps your blood sugar level. If you skip meals like that, your blood sugar levels are going to go up and down depending on what you eat. And then when you skip meals like that, your blood sugar level goes up and down. If you add more carbs into it, it's going to cause it to spike up and drop back down. Therefore, you're going to feel tired whenever you eat. And we don't want that for anybody, right? The next thing we got is a low-carb veggie. Low-carb veggies are things like broccoli, cauliflower, spinach, tomatoes, kale, Brussels sprouts, cabbage, Swiss chard, lettuce. You also have cucumbers. They're very not high in carbs, which you got certain vegetables that can be. So I highly recommend those, and they'll do you good. They actually help with digestion. A lot of these things right here you want to eat in addition to with that protein, so that actually can give you a well-balanced meal, and it actually keeps your blood sugar level from spiking and going up and down. Now, lastly, this is where people say, you know, the American diets came in and said, Doc, you know what, we should eat less fat. And that's actually not true. We need to actually eat more fat. I guarantee you, if you increase your fat intake and you decrease your sugar, you're gonna lose weight. That's just a fact. It's a fact. It's shown time and time again what happens with a lot of different people. But you want to eat healthy fats. You don't want to eat a lot of crazy triglycerides, unhealthy saturated fats. You want to eat stuff like olive oil, avocado oil. You got coconut oil. You got butter, good grass-fed, free-range butter that's organic. So these are different things that you can actually do when every time you eat, you want to make sure that you have all 3 of those sources in there. That's number 2. The third one, which is one of my favorites, you want to lift weights 3 to 4 times a week. Yes, lift weights. Well, people say, well, what about cardio? Lifting weights is actually more beneficial to you actually slowing down your metabolism, developing a strong core, and actually burning fat. Yes, when you lift and you challenge that muscle, you burn about 2 to 3 times more fat than you would just doing cardio and doing some kind of activity that's anaerobic. So what happens is it prevents it. Now's the time where people aren't going to the gym because we're in the middle of a pandemic. So what people can do is they can actually do bodyweight exercises at home. Simple stuff like air squats, push-ups. And if you can't do that, you need to work your way up to it. Maybe try to get to the point where you could do 1 or 2. But one of the things that you can always do that's a great substitute if you can't lift weights is you can walk. You can actually cycle. You can go for a jog. There's so many different things you could do that, you know, we talked about that on the other day as far as exercising. So you want to lift weights 3 to 4 times a week. And I tell you, strength is the best insurance policy that you can give your body. It's better than Blue Cross Blue Shield. It's better than, you know, Humana, whatever insurance you have. The best insurance policy you can give yourself, along with God, is making sure that you actually giving your body strength, because that's something that we lose as we get older and gravity starts to take over. Okay. Now, top tips as we wrap this thing up, because we're approaching about 15 minutes. Number 1. before you do any kind of weight loss thing, I strongly recommend that you do a detox to actually flush the liver out. And what I mean by a detox of flushing the liver out, a simple way that you could do that is stop by your local store and pick up dandelion root tea. Dandelion root tea is a light way to actually flush the liver out, to actually get a lot of toxins pushed out of the body, because the liver is very important as far as breaking down food and cleansing the blood and doing a lot of different things. And so if that's already working sluggish, you're going to have a hard time losing weight. So what that means is drink tea. Dandelion root tea is one of my favorites. I add apple cider vinegar and a little honey into it. Another way that you could do it too is coffee. Coffee is one of the most effective ways actually detoxifying the body. And I'm not talking about these $5 lattes from Starbucks, just good old plain coffee with nothing in it, black. And maybe you can add some monk fruit or something like that to actually make it sweet, or some agave. So you can also try different substitutes to do it instead of your regular dairy and milk and all those things. Second thing is my top 10 out of the big three. This is the follow-up that made special mention. It's intermittent fasting. I'm a huge fan of intermittent fasting because what it does is it forces your body to actually burn fat instead of sugar. And when it burns fat instead of sugar, then your body's actually starting to burn the fat that's around the body. It starts to melt it away. Now, what intermittent fasting is also becoming very popular because it's very effective and it's easy to do. One of the most important ways, or one of my favorite ways of doing it, is the 16-8. So you basically fast for 16 hours and you eat what you normally would eat in a day period, or 12-hour period, in an 8-hour period. So you basically almost skip breakfast, and then you would eat lunch, a midday snack, and then you eat dinner, and you wouldn't eat after 8 o'clock. So that's an easy way to do it. Also, you want to avoid sugary drinks and juices. Anybody knows that any kind of juice, if you look at the label on the back of it, is very high in sugar. Very high. All drinks, sporty drinks, all fruit juices are very high in sugar. So unless you're actually squeezing that juice yourself freshly, I would avoid those at all costs and substitute with water. The fourth thing, which leads me into that, is you want to drink water before your meals. I'm a huge component of water. My recommendation is drink half your body weight in ounces of water. So if you're a guy or female, you're 200 pounds, you want to start drinking 100 ounces of water. And I'm not saying you drink, and that's throughout the day, not at one time. I'm not saying that you sit around and you just drink 100 ounces of water at one time. You maybe drink 10 ounces every hour, or 8 hours every hour. In an 8-hour period, you've drank almost, in a 10-hour period, if you drink 8 ounces, you drink 80 ounces of water. I mean, that's easy. That's 8 ounce thing of water is not very much. Also too, you drink water before your meals, which is very important. People that drink water before their meals typically tend to eat less, and which is critical right now, because if we want to eat less and we want to do these different things, you want to make sure that you're actually drinking water. A plant-based diet based off of whole foods. So foods that actually come from their whole source. When we're talking about whole foods, we're not talking about you going to Whole Foods and buying food. I'm talking about foods that actually come from their original source. So an apple would be an example. Broccoli would be an example. But when they start mixing with all this stuff and try to make a cauliflower chip, that's something that's not considered a whole food, even though it is cauliflower. But you got stuff that's made with a lot of different flour and preservatives that's very bad for us. Now, the sixth thing out of those top 10 mentions is you want to eat slowly. Believe it or not, your digestion starts the time that food hits your mouth, because you're chewing the food up. You have enzymes that actually come and help break the food down. So the better the food is actually chewed up and you eat slowly, you tend to chew your food more, it's better for your digestion. And when it's better for your digestion, your body can break it down faster and it gets the nutrients that it needs. The seventh thing is you want to weigh yourself daily. One of the reasons behind that is that people that actually weigh themselves daily are more accountable to what their weight is. So it's not like it's you forget about it and then you go and you weigh yourself once a week. You want to weigh yourself and you're like, man, am I on track? And if you see that you maybe gained a pound or two, you're quicker to make decisions instead of you waited to the end of the week to weigh yourself. And then you're like, man, I done gained like 5 pounds and I don't know how. Well, there's no accountability there. So you want to make sure that you're weighing yourself properly every day and just getting on that same scale, and it helps to keep you accountable. Eat soluble fiber that your body can actually break down. Fiber is one of the best ways to actually keep your digestive system moving, keep your body flushed out. So you want to make sure you're eating fiber. The next thing is you want to do is you want to get the proper amount of sleep. And we talked about that in scheduling. There's no way that you can lose weight if you do not sleep. And what I mean by sleep is people need to eat. They need to sleep about 7 to 9 hours a day of just proper sleep. Sleep is so vital and so important. That's when your body rests, repairs, and it digests and it breaks down, and it just comes back to a whole new way. But if you're constantly in a sympathetic dominant state where your body's in that fight or flight, there's no way. Your body's always stressed up. You're more tight. Processes slow down because they actually are perceiving some kind of threat or danger. And God didn't design our bodies to actually live like that. So review these top 3. I'm going to review them real quick. Number 1 is you want to cut back on the carbs. Number 2, you want to eat protein, fat, and vegetables with every meal. And number 3, you want to lift weights 3 to 4 times a week. And you can go back and review the video for the top 10. And then we got also the homework assignment today is to actually sit down when you make your schedule and plan out your meals for the next few days. And it's a perfect time to do it. If it's on the weekend, you can plan them out for the whole week. What you could do too is you can actually just cook a whole bunch of food and make it last for the whole week. That's another great way to do it. Again, I'm Dr. John Artis. I'm signing off. Masterclass. Here we go. Let's keep it going.